Welcome to the After Dark podcast with Anthony James and Konrad. This is an extra episode for your YouTube comments because Anthony James and Konrad could not stop rambling on. What a pair of schmucks. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.
Welcome to the After Dark podcast. I'm Anthony James, and that's Konrad.
Hello.
We're here to answer your questions. Well, most of them are for Konrad, but I think there is at least one for me this week, Konrad, so you'll be happy to know.
This is outrageous. I thought I made my thoughts on this perfectly clear the last time you were asked a question.
Yeah, exactly. But at least it'll give your little vocal cords a little bit of a rest.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah, so considering we've got 16 questions, I would say subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on the podcasting apps, leave a comment below if you want to, and let's just get straight into it.
Let's do it.
And that was correctly using straight into it, that guy from a few weeks ago.
Yeah, take that.
Right.
A stranger from the outside.
Question 1 comes from Jamie Jett. Jamie Jett's becoming a frequent questioner, so thank you very much.
Yeah, I recognize that name.
Yep. What does Konrad think will happen to Ulrich in 1953 moving forward? Does he believe he will make it back to present day or stay in 1953?
No, I don't think he's going to make it back alive. I think he's going to die in 1953. I think he navigated the caves by following Helga, and I don't think he has any of the tools or documentation or experience he needs to get back on his own. So I think he might be stuck in 53, and I think he's maybe going to run afoul of either the police or, Noah or some other violent character who's going to bump him off, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Well, I wasn't wishing for him to, suffer at the end of the episode before this one, but now Ulrich can do one, quite frankly.
Yeah, he can just, he can go and live a happy life in a grave in 1953.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Okay. Next question from Marvin. I think now I haven't actually read this one yet, so if I pause halfway through, it's because I'm editing as I go. Okay.
Okay. Nice.
I think at the end of episode 8, I trust Marvin. I think Marvin wouldn't give you a spoiler. He says, I think at the end of episode 8 is where you first see old Claudia. So if I'm wrong, this question is pointless. Well, right, Marvin. Good memory. Good memory. Where/when is she? And when will she leave her current timeline? So we've seen her in 86. So that's sort of where we think her current timeline is. When will she leave that current timeline? And what is she doing there? Like in the place she's in?
So, I mean, she's clearly fighting because she has an absolute arseload of guns and weapons with her. So I think she's in 20... I would assume, given the 33-year cycle thing and what we know about the machines opening a portal 33 years in the future and 33 years in the past, that she's in 2052. Or maybe she's further forward than that, because I guess with those machines, there's no logical reason why she couldn't be at any point in the future. But for the time being, I'm assuming it's going to be 2052. And I think she's kind of holding the fort. I assume she must have worked with the stranger, and the stranger maybe was sent back in time to try and fix the calamity that she is currently in the middle of. And she's kind of either protecting the last sort of bastion of civilization or something like that. I think she's going to become, a character who has to sort of defend others in that timeline, or defend a place where there's a portal that they can use to get back in time or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Next question. Also, now that in season 1, almost all the characters are introduced.
All the pieces are on the board, you might say.
What will happen to them? Who will be time traveling before the end of the season?
I wonder if we're going to see anyone else time travel that hasn't already time traveled. I think Jonas will be off again because, I think I've made no secret the fact that I think Jonas becomes the stranger. Mm-hmm. So I think there's going to be some kind of incident which makes Jonas realize what will happen if events follow their current course. Maybe it'll have something to do with the Vanis Mikkel stuff in Regina's hotel. But I think I'm trying to think where I see this season ending. I could see Ulrich kind of dying, being something at the end of this season potentially. Although actually, having said that, that made more sense when I had some sentimentality towards him. But after this episode, I don't really have any. So it wouldn't be kind of, it would be shocking, but it wouldn't be kind of as impactful to me if he died, because I'd be just like satisfied by it.
Yeah.
Where do I see it going? I think we're going to see 2052 by the end of this. I think there's going to be, you know, a reveal of
a fourth timeline.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do like a full episode like they've done with the 50s and the 80s, but I think they're going to show us what the current timeline results in by the end of this episode, by the end of the season, rather.
Okay. And Marvin just adds on at the end there that what day or how long are the questions open for? Marvin, I think I've mentioned it before. Maybe I haven't, but basically we record most of the time. We will record when it's a normal time and there's not a baby on the way. We'll record on a Thursday. So that gives you 3 days to get the question up. So if you listen to the podcast after the Thursday, usually that's too late. So good question. It is important to know that. If you put a question on after that, if I'm able to and I have the time, I could ask Konrad and get his answer and give it to you in the text form. I don't really know if I have the time for that, so it's better just to get in those first 3 days. Of course, as you know, the After Dark podcast, we're on every week, so if you don't get a chance to ask a question there, you can ask a question next week. Just make sure you get it in before Thursday evening UK time. Okay, that's what it is. If you put a question there half an hour before we start recording, then I'll include it. Hopefully that answers your question.
There you go. That's a guarantee.
That's a guarantee. Right. Okay. So question from Milos Vitten. And he says, "Hi, guys. Thank you for a very interesting approach to the show."
I'm not sure if I would describe my wild ramblings as interesting, but I'm very flattered and glad that you think that.
Yeah. No problem, I would say. Question for Konrad. I love how he specifies Konrad. Just in case Anthony's getting excited.
You stay out of it.
Yeah, I'll stay out of it. Why do you think Mikkel committed suicide?
Because he wanted to get out of the goddamn loop. There we go. Yeah. So I think Mikkel. So I think we're going to see Michael again. Basically, is what that theory leads me to. Because I think by dying, you are escaping the timeline. So I think the stranger has killed himself at least once, or has been killed, possibly by being hung, or by hanging himself, or by having his throat cut. I think Michael killed himself to escape the loop, and I think the same thing has happened to Helga. So, yeah, I think we're going to see Michael again.
Interesting. And why do you think he waited 33 years to do it?
That's a good question, actually. I haven't really thought about that.
He just didn't. Maybe it took him that long to realize. Your theory, I mean, you know.
Yeah, I guess like thinking about where Mikkel is now as a character, like he doesn't really have a lot of the information because he's kind of operating independently of anyone else. So I guess maybe it took him 33 years to kind of arrive at the conclusion that by killing himself, he could sort of break the cycle and get out of it. Or perhaps he did kill himself because of his illness and because he was tired of life, and it's entirely coincidental that he may also escape the loop. But at the moment, I think when a character dies, I think it's quite there's a distinction between all the characters that we've seen die so far who have come back or appear to have come back in the case of the stranger, but have come back in the case of Helga, and the characters who have been killed by Noah's hand, who have been properly decimated, like they've had their like soul ripped out of their body, for want of a better way of phrasing
ripped
it.
Out of their eyes.
Yeah, so like it appears like Noah has a way of permanently killing people, though why he's killing people I don't know. But I think there is a way to permanently die in this. But I think Michael killed himself to break out of the loop rather than because he wanted to permanently die.
Interesting. Next question from Alex. Has Konrad picked up on the fact that every episode is 1 day? And does so answer that question, yes or no?
Yeah, I had sort of picked up on that
for the most part.
Back.
Yeah, for the most part, that's what's happening. Especially in season 1, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And does he expect that to play an important part in the storytelling in future episodes and seasons?
No, I
It kind of already is, isn't it? Like whether it'll play more of a part, I don't know, but it already is playing a part in the way they're telling a story, definitely.
Yeah. For this season, it certainly is. Like each it's kind of progressing for the most part for like a day at a time away from the sort of central incident of Mikkel going missing. But I think if the sort of Vinden wormhole is essential to the plot as I think it might be, then I could see them doing sort of entire loops of the 99-year cycle in the space of like an episode in future, because once we know what's going to happen, there's no reason to revisit it again. So you could have characters dropping into times and doing crazy stuff, and only focusing in on the bits that we haven't seen before, and get some interesting character work with the characters in those times while you're at it as well.
Yeah, interesting. So it'll become more complex, but at that point the audience is sort of trained for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so next question from Pep Cool.
Nice.
Hello guys. Question for both of you. Yes.
Oh, that's outrageous.
Did you miss Bartos in this episode?
No, because I felt like Helga filled in amply as the weird kid.
I did miss Bartos. I like having Bartos on the screen. He's always, I was about to say you never know what he's going to do, but to be honest with you, we do know what he's going to do. He's always, if there's another character in the scene with him, he's going to try and make that character as uncomfortable as possible.
Yeah, I felt like the bully with the popped collar, which is a nice little way of visually indicating that someone is a knob, is by having their collar up. I felt like he had some Bartos energy as well, the one who pisses on Helga. So so he was there in spirit, if not literally.
Yeah, that was definitely the Bartos of the time.
Yeah.
So speaking of Bartos, Pep Cool says, can Konrad give a crazy fanfic theory of where Bartos' storyline will go? I need something wild.
Well, wilder than the one I proposed the other week, where like I think he's going to get recruited into Noah's coven of hooded figures
and eventually start doing spells.
Well, no, I don't think he'll start doing spells, but I think he's going to go on a redemption arc. So I think he's going to become a bad guy, work for Noah, and like kind of get welcomed into his inner circle of hooded acolytes, and then he's going to like work from the inside to bring Noah down. So he'll probably die as part of it as well, because that's how the redemption arc works. Is he gives his life to save probably Marta, like because Marta doesn't actually like him, but she'll come to respect him at the very least. But yeah, I mean that's kind of where I see his relationship with Noah going at the moment. The wildest theory I can come up with Bartos is that at some point he becomes a decent human being. So imagine that.
There's no way.
There's no way. Yeah, you could have as many repetitions of this timeline as you like, and Bartos will be a dick in every single one of them. It's like the bit in Avengers where Doctor Strange calculates how many times they beat Thanos.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
How many times was Bartos not a dick? Just the one.
0.
Yeah, it was 0.
So I'm going to ask you 2 questions, right?
Okay.
This is literally just to get more theories on the board, just so we have.
This is almost unfair and manipulative now, because I'm just being set up for failure. But go on.
I know, yeah, 100%. Yeah. So my first question is: so they alluded to the idea of where Bartos' story will go. You then alluded to the idea that maybe he'll get killed after being a part of whatever. First question: do you believe this? This is a prediction now. Do you believe Bartos will be murdered or killed? Let's say.
I mean, I think I'm in 2 minds. I'm going to say, for the purposes of being interesting, that I am genuinely like bought into the theory that he will kind of be manipulated into helping Noah in the same way that Helga was, because he has some of the same hallmarks of being kind of naive in a slightly weird way and kind of wanting to please people but not really knowing how to do it, where I could see him easily being manipulated and coerced into doing bad things. So I can see him becoming part of Noah's gang or group or whatever, and as a result of that, I think he would need to have some kind of redemption arc, which I think the natural end of would be him dying. So yeah, I think I can see him dying, but I don't think it would be for a while.
So answer the question: do you think he will be killed?
Will he be killed?
Yeah, like will someone be responsible for his death? because you're saying his arc ends with him dying. So I just want to get a prediction on the board that we can say you're right or wrong about. So
I think he will. I think he will be killed.
Okay, so my follow-up question to you think he will be killed is, who do you think is going to kill him? You have a potential to gain some points here, but you have also a potential to lose some points.
I'm gonna. It would feel quite poetic for it to be Jonas, so that's who I'm gonna say.
Okay, interesting.
It's either gonna be Jonas or Noah, but I'm gonna say Jonas.
Awesome. Next question.
It's going into the theory matrix. I'm writing it down as we speak.
Yeah, that's I'm trying to get you to make as many predictions as possible.
It's cruel, is what it is.
Okay. Next question from Boros. If Ulrich were to be
the snake eating its tail. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
If Ulrich were to be tried for what he did, as in like a trial, should he get the normal sentence for such a crime? Or should he go free or anything in between? I recently got into an argument with someone on Reddit. This is their comment. I recently got into an argument with someone on Reddit where it was widely believed that Ulrich was the same thing as killing baby Hitler, and thus he shouldn't be treated as a normal criminal. Now I did touch on this I stood on my pedestal and addressed this in the main episode. We can do it again. I don't mind.
Well, I think, there's probably not enough hours in the day for me to explain why that's incorrect. But briefly, it's not the same thing as killing baby Hitler. Well, I mean, okay, no, I'll retract that. Let's work on the assumption that it is the same thing as killing baby Hitler.
Yes.
And let's treat that as a cardinal truth. You kill baby Hitler, you avoid. Let's put it in simple terms. You avoid the Holocaust and you avoid World War II. So you're saving, I don't know, round number, let's say 10 million lives are saved as a result of you committing this crime. So, the simplistic way of looking at that is handshakes all around, pat you on the back, well done, you saved 10 million lives. The realistic way of looking at that, if you accept that time travel is possible and there's a causal relationship between these changes you're making in the past and the future, is that you have no idea what the effect of that is going to be. Like, you've killed baby Hitler, okay, those things never happen, but what happens if somewhere down the line one of I know he didn't have them, but let's say Hitler had children or something, one of his children was going to come up with the cure for Alzheimer's or cancer or something like that. You're taking on this responsibility that no one person could possibly have or could possibly deal with, because you simply don't know the outcomes of the outcome of what you're going to do. You don't know how far reaching it's going to be. And it's not for one person to be judge, jury, and executioner for someone who hasn't even had a chance to make the mistakes that will lead them to these bad choices. Like you simply, unfortunately, as abhorrent as it may be, you have to accept that people have the capacity to make awful choices, and allow those choices to happen, because the alternative is you basically, as Ulrich has done in this episode, decide that you're going to dictate who gets to live and who gets to die, based on a very, very arbitrary and predetermined set of notions you have about those people. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the question, Ulrich should just be tried for murder, and that should be the end of it. Like, you don't just get to kill people, unfortunately, no matter how right you think you might be.
Yeah, and just to add to that, let's be honest. People in the 60s and 70s were willing to go to prison for going on the bus and sitting in the wrong seat. They were willing to face the criminal charges to make a point, right? So do you not think that the person who goes back in time to kill Hitler, baby Hitler, is 100% expecting and willing to face the criminal charges of being a murderer? Of course they are. So the idea of not being treated like a normal criminal is absolutely ridiculous. The person who killed baby Hitler would welcome with open arms being put in prison, because they sort of are, if you like, a civil rights activist for all of the Jews who died. He's like a Jewish rights activist. So they would. There's no way you commit to going back in time and killing a child or a baby without thinking that you're going to go to prison for it. So, like, even the idea of should he be tried or should he be treated like a normal criminal? Yeah. And the person who went back to kill baby Hitler expects to be treated like a normal criminal.
Yeah, and I think, just to pose a hypothetical, if we say, okay, if you can quantify a certain amount of lives saved as a justification for killing a child, who decides that line?
Yeah.
Is it, oh, this person murdered their girlfriend in a fit of rage because their girlfriend was cheating on them? Is it okay to go back and kill them when they're a baby? Like, okay, this person had a heart attack when they were driving a bus and the bus went off a bridge and everyone on the bus died. Do we kill them when they're a baby?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, these are the kind of moral quandaries that you simply can't. No human is equipped to make decisions of that gravity, because as soon as you start doing it, you're playing God, and that's what Ulrich's doing here. And I think, to go back to your point about the person going back in time would expect to go to prison, the thing that I find most abhorrent, I think, about Ulrich's behavior in this is I think he doesn't have any remorse, and I think he doesn't think he's going to get caught for it as well. I think he thinks he's done the right thing. He seems absolutely convinced that what he's done is correct and right. He doesn't feel guilt, and I think Ulrich is a coward. I think he doesn't expect to get caught, just like he didn't expect to get caught with Hannah, and I think he doesn't expect to get punished for it. And I really hope that he does, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we've done about at least 10 minutes of the podcast, including the main podcast and this question on this idea of killing baby Hitler and Ulrich. If so, you understand our views on it. So tell those people in Reddit to come watch our videos.
Yeah.
And if they still don't like it, it's pistols at dawn.
Yeah, I mean, arguing on Reddit, I gave that up a long time ago as well. Like, you just gotta.
Yeah, you just gotta just take a step back.
Yeah, those hills aren't worth dying on, in my experience.
Yeah. Although, if you are going to do it, make sure you just be really polite. Like that's the thing. If you be really polite and like say, oh yeah, good point, but, and like always be polite, then no matter what, even if someone comes along and reads, you're not going to look like the bad guy, even if you are arguing for killing baby Hitler, or not killing baby Hitler as it would be. Right. Next question. This is from Annalise. Now, Annalise has put a big, long sort of analysis of a book called Momo by Michael Ende, but or Michael End, I suppose. It's got an E on the end, but I'm not sure. I've never read the book. Apparently, there's a film of it too. But Annalise draws out a load of similarities between Dark's sort of the way they approach the 50s and the book. So I'm sorry, Annalise. From what you said here, it does seem interesting, but neither of us, I would imagine, I don't think Konrad's seen it or read it.
No, I'm not aware of it. I'll have to check it out though. What is it? It's the book that's been specifically mentioned. Yeah,
well, it's a book that's been specifically mentioned, and it says that in terms of the way it looks, so all the men they write all the men in Dark and the way they looked, for example, reminded me of the men in Grey from the book. Of course, yeah. So apparently, there's a lot of really similar themes there. So I'm sure, Annalise, there's someone who's watching this video who has read the book or seen the film, and this might start a really awesome discussion with those people in the comments on this video. So have at that. But unfortunately, we haven't read it. But I'll endeavor over the next 50 to 60 years to do so.
And that is a promise you can take to the bank.
Yeah, and I'll get back to you on it whenever I get around to it. Thanks. Right. I really sorry, Annalise, I did not mean for that to come across. I realized how I was sounding. You'll know. I did a video on The Expanse from someone in the comments telling me that it was good. I do genuinely really respect those suggestions and things. So sorry about the flippancy.
At least he is big leaguing you. This is like he's gotten too big for his own boots. I'm sorry. He's getting close to 2,000 subscribers and he hasn't got time for little people anymore.
No. Oh, jeez. All right. Okay. If I had an editor for this podcast, I'd tell them to take it out, but we don't, unfortunately. All right. Sorry. Atahan asks, so I've got a few. First one. What do you think of all the new characters that were introduced?
Well, just generally.
I think just generally, yeah.
I mean, I think it's really ballsy. Writing to like really ridiculously ballsy. Like if anyone else was doing it, I would say this is ridiculous that you're introducing a bunch of new characters this far into the first season. But I think they're interesting. I kind of have it's kind of similar to the third episode where it's almost like another pilot. So you're only getting like little snapshots really of these characters. I think probably the most interesting. I want to see where Egon goes. Agnes as well, because she's like a film noir femme fatale based on how she dresses and acts. So there's potentially a murder in her past, which is always juicy. And H.G. Tannhaus, I think the exclusion or the fact that Charlotte hasn't been mentioned, or Charlotte's parents haven't been mentioned, is very interesting, given what we suspect about him being Charlotte's grandfather. So I'm interested to see sort of how his family comes into his desires about trying to travel through time. I suspect there is a line from H.G. Tannhaus where he says that he used to dream about traveling through time, and now he feels like his time is in the here and now in 1986. And I wonder if that's because he has started a family, although he seems a little old to be starting a family in 86. So I'm not 100% sure on that, but I definitely want to see more of him.
Awesome. Why do you think that Greta is so cold with Helga?
Evil stepmother. I'm calling it now. It's just like she is not his biological mother, and she hates him as a result.
Awesome.
Just good old fashioned Disney stepmother.
Are you noticing anything going on with Agnes and Doris?
No. What could you possibly be talking about there? This woman in red who is grabbing people's hands left, right, and center.
Yeah, and what does this say about Doris's relationship with Egon? Well, he's not getting the job done.
Yeah, clearly confused is what I would say.
Yeah. What did you think of the fact that we never actually saw Daniel Kahnwald's wife?
So Daniel Kahnwald is the other cop.
Yeah, he seemed like the police chief to me.
Yeah, I didn't really think about his wife, to be honest. So that would be Enos's mother.
Yeah,
I didn't think too much about it, to be honest.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, this show obviously is heavily focused on families, so you are going to naturally think about whose parent is who and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Having said that, it's not going to go into the family tree of every character.
Yeah, I'm sure that's one of those things where in a few episodes time, when we've seen more of the 50s, if they still haven't shown me anything about Enos's mother, I'll start to sort of theorize and suspect it. But when you're sort of first introduced to the setting, it's not immediately suspicious to me if they don't go into, or they don't introduce every single character. Yeah. Although the fact that we've had a question asked about it now immediately gets me thinking about the absentee Kahnwald matriarch.
So last question from Atahan. How well do you think Egon is doing at his job compared to how well he did in 1986?
I mean, he seems like he's doing all right. He's doing his best. Yeah, I like Egon.
That's something that I think that sentence sums up Egon. He's doing his best.
Yeah, like he's trying. He's trying, and I can respect that. Like he seems like a nice man in a series that doesn't have that many nice men, or well, at least not nice men who don't have a big bloody asterisk next to it. Like, he seems like unapologetically kind and nice, and I suspect he will be taken advantage of and for most of his life as a result of that. Maybe he's not a particularly good policeman, but I'll tell you this right now, he's a damn sight better at his job than Ulrich is. So
yeah. And then Atahan as episode 8, while it's by no means my favorite episode, it's definitely up there. I would agree.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely one of the best ones I've seen so far. I can always tell when I've really, really enjoyed an episode because I come out of it just buzzing and wanting to write everything down and watch it again immediately.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so then MH asks, I wonder if the Doppler house feels familiar to Konrad.
Let me think. Doppler house, those stairs. Maybe not. I don't know. That felt a bit like the Kahnwald's house, but it's obviously much smaller. But like the way the staircase is shot. No, wait, hold on. Actually, I'm just trying to think of that like shot of the staircase and whether we've seen that mirrored, because Dark normally does kind of visual matching. Like it very much did it in the Tiedemann house. Like you could kind of tell the rooms they're walking around at the Tiedemann house were the same room where the Nielsen's had that big kind of one-shot family gathering. So what is? I mean, the answer is no immediately. Like I didn't think about what that might look like, but there's only so many places it could be.
Yeah.
Like it's either going to be a bit. No, I can't immediately think. I have to reflect on that.
Stew on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, they asked what could be the matter with Agnes's mysterious husband and grandmother. I don't know what they mean by what could be the matter, but did you know? Like, what are your initial thoughts about Agnes's mysterious husband and grandmother?
I mean, the husband of the three theories I proposed. So either she murdered him and ran away with Tronte. He is still alive, but she ran away with Tronte because he was abusive, or there is no husband. He's just she just got pregnant, had a kid, and she uses the husband as like cover for something else. I think, she's a woman in red in a thing set in the 50s. It's very film noir. I think she murdered her husband, who was abusive, and ran away and is running away from the crime. Or I think, that's the current story. So yeah, that's what I think she's done. I don't know about the grandmother thing though. Oh wait, so the grandmother living in Vinden. Well, yeah. I mean, she's Marta, so her grandmother's Jana. So yeah, her grandmother does live in Vinden.
Okay, awesome. Next question from Aries. What does Konrad think about the arrival of Agnes and Tronte in Winden in 1953? Where have they come from? Are they really mother and son, or are they just acting like they are?
That feels like it could be sending me down a complete blind alley. That question. I do wonder. That's interesting because maybe it's possible, I suppose, that she's not actually his mother and she just rescued him from an abusive situation, possibly. That could still totally fit into that sort of femme fatale thing if she was, a working woman perhaps, and she saved the son of one of her Johns. I don't know. That's potentially being a bit unfair to her, that implying that she used to be a prostitute. But women don't wear red in things like this unless it's trying to say something about their characters.
That looked like a very professional hand movement, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, tactical hand touch, as we've discussed. THT. Yeah, I hadn't considered that. That's interesting. The idea that maybe she's not actually Tronte's mother. Where have they come from? The answer is the future. So they've looped back around. Yeah,
on the carousel that is Winden.
Yeah, exactly. And the eternal dance that is Winden, they've spun back round to the 50s. Yeah, I mean that's kind of one of my more fun theories, as opposed to one that I'm sort of really got both feet into. But I think at the very least there is enough mystery shrouding their origins that they're up to no good. But maybe I think there's probably going to be mystery in like the character drama as well. So I'm kind of hoping with Dark that it doesn't just go full bore into the time travel stuff and still take some time to explore, a woman fleeing an abusive relationship, for instance, or something like that. Like I hope there's still space for that kind of stuff in the show as it goes forward.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Moving on. Next question from Lucille Lacroix.
Aha. We'll get better at pronouncing that name each time we say it.
Yeah, that's how it works, isn't it?
Or worse.
Okay, so I'm not sure where the questions are because there's quite a bit of writing, so I'm just going to read. Ready? Okay, weird and confused question. But, well, I'm a philosopher, so, it's kind of my job to ask that kind of questions. Interesting to know, Lucille. Thanks for letting us know that. Puts a little spin on what your questions will be, I'm sure. So, you were saying that this episode really introduces / confirms the idea that there are real rules regarding time travel in the show. So, for example, changing things in the past is not without consequence, and surely it will affect the future, which raises plenty of questions, I think. So, for instance, we know that Jonas exists and that his father was Michael, and Michael was Mikkel, who in fact was born after both Jonas and Michael. So there's a paradox here, right?
Yeah, I mean there is, yeah, but that's like causal determinism in a nutshell. Is that the like time is not traveling in a straight line. it's looping back around on itself. Well, that's not causal determinism. That's just like the black hole theory. But yeah, I mean, I guess it is a paradox, but only if you view time as a straight line rather than something which loops back round on itself if the ends are joined, so to speak.
Or the way that I've sort of tried to characterize it in my videos before in terms of the linear thing. Time is a straight line, but the events which occur within it maybe not. So I don't like the idea of time looping back, because one character going to the past isn't actually the whole timeline looping. Do you know what I mean?
No, that's true.
Mm-hmm. So I think when you start talking about time loops and stuff, some people get like really like into the fine gritty details of it, the nitty gritty, and you have to just sort of separate that out. Like, time does move from past to present. However, the past influences the present and the future, and the future influences the past. So it is kind of like a huge big loop, even though it is always constantly moving in a line, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Like, it's more, yeah, I think the reach of our actions in our given portion of the timeline can affect, as Tannhaus says, like the past and the present. So, you know, you can step backwards and forwards through time, and your actions will impact the timeline. But yeah, time itself isn't going to kind of reset, I guess.
Yeah, like each version of a character, like each version of Claudia, for example, who goes from young, middle, old, will come to fruition, you know, get older and then die, and then the next one will come. It's not like the same character is reimagining as a new. It's not the same character looping. It's they have a particular path that goes all over the timeline, but they do come to an end at some point.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So then Lucille goes on. So I guess my question is mostly about time, choice, and free will. When the stranger lets Jonas choose between bringing Mikkel back or leaving him in the 80s, does Jonas actually have a choice? And if so, what would actually happen if he decided to bring him back? Like, we suppose he would sort of be erased from existence, I guess. But what about the people who knew him, like Hannah or Marta? How do we make sense of all that? So, like, maybe like do their memories go away? Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, so they like stop being able to play Earth Angel, and they disappear from a photograph. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what happens. I mean, the stranger clearly, if he hasn't seen it firsthand, he suspects what will happen. And believes in it, because, you know, when he grabs Jonas and says, like, you know, shakes it into him, like, that's your dad, don't be an idiot, you're going to erase yourself if you talk to him. You know, it's not the behavior of someone who knows that it's impossible for you to erase yourself in the past. Like, he clearly is at the very least respects the idea enough that he thinks it could happen, and doesn't want Jonas to do it. So I wonder what it would look like, whether it would just be, you know, you just blink out of existence and you were never there. I don't think it will be the Back to the Future you're fading away, you've got to make your parents fall in love kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, the stranger definitely believes that can happen, because otherwise he wouldn't warn Jonas about doing it. In terms of whether he has a choice, again, I have to frame this in the context of the stranger. He believes that Jonas does, or believes that he did, I guess, because, you know, he's talking to H.G. Tannhaus about how he doesn't agree with determinism. Like, he thinks it's possible to escape, you know, these sort of predestined set of decisions that you will make on this timeline. And I guess that's quite reasonable to hold that opinion if you've seen the things that I suspect he has seen, in terms of, you know, potentially like massive nuclear war or some kind of cataclysmic event that you know, ravages the earth. Maybe he has to believe in that to keep himself going, and I wonder if that's something that will actually be revealed anytime soon. But yeah, I think whether there's a choice is not something the show will get into definitively one way or the other until much further on. But I hope, I like to think there is. I mean, as H.G. Tannhaus says, like, we like to believe as humans that we have control in our own lives. It's a very human thing to believe.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the human nature to want to believe if you have free will.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lucille just ends it by saying, also regarding my name, You did get it pretty wrong the first time.
That was when you pronounced it.
Yeah, LaCroix. I thought that was right. I thought that was pretty close, but apparently not. But I absolutely would not know how to explain the correct pronunciation to you. So you know what? Just pick the pronunciation you like the best, and it's more than fine to me. So this is what I'm going with for the future, right?
Okay.
Lucille Lacroix.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely how French works. They really like pronounce those X's exactly like the letter sounds.
Yeah, so that's the way I think it's done, Lucille. So that's what I'm going to be doing from now on. Okay, Lacroix.
I can't even see your name, so I can't even make an attempt at it. I can do Lucille.
Lacroix.
Oh, okay. Lacroix. I can't. I don't think my mouth. It's like a bit like when you try and say a name that's like an Afrikaans name. Like my mouth just doesn't make the right shapes to get that. I think.
The thing is, and also what's really interesting is I don't actually know if it's even appropriate for me on a podcast to try and pronounce an Afrikaans word. You know,
Yeah.
I don't, or like
get yourself in hot water with that.
Like I don't really know, so we'll just avoid that one. But Lucille Lacroix, thank you very much. Hopefully we hear from you next time. Jane Choi asks, question for Konrad. Thanks again for specifying. I had a little bit of hope in my heart there, but you've crushed it there, Jane. Thank you very much.
Don't fall for his lies.
What does he think about Agnes and young Tronte? Where does he think their storyline will go? So we've talked about what do you think about their past. Now what about their future? So any guesses of whether Tronte's father is going to come in?
Well, there's definitely a possibility. As I say, you know, that it seems the obvious, or my first instinct is either they've murdered his father to escape an abusive relationship, or they have said he's dead, but they've actually just run away from an abusive father. Those seem like the two most likely options. Whether they're actually related, Tronte and Agnes, that is, remains to be seen. But my kind of hope with them, I know I've said like, oh, I think she's martyr, but I wonder if characters like this are going to kind of underpin the time travel stuff by just having character drama happening in the different timelines. So you know, the father figure showing back up, and these guys having to deal with being stalked by an abusive ex or an abusive father figure, and they can't go to the police because Egan's incompetent or whatever. So that's kind of where I see that going. I don't know if they're actually going to get into any, or if Agnes at least is going to get into any time travel stuff. It does beg the question how Tronte ends up working with Noah, well, assuming he is working with Noah, because obviously, you know, we know he gets up to something. But at the moment, I see that as just character drama to do with that relationship with the father, who I'd be surprised if he was deceased, just because there's so much drama that you could get out of him not being dead and being back and you know, still being abusive. But yeah, that's where I see that going at the moment.
Awesome. Great. Next question from Bloody Rose.
Oh,
I love this podcast. Konrad is such a good sport. My question for Konrad, again, thanks for specifying. Do you think that the characters in Dark have free will? So sort of bringing into it, we've already touched on a bit of this, but we're not going to just ignore the question. Or is everything predetermined? What is your theory on this? And if it's okay to ask, okay, so we'll ask that one first. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So again, you know, Stranger thinks that you do. And I think free will is a very nebulous concept.
Actually, I think you're about to answer the second question, so let me just ask
go on.
Might be they say, and if it's okay to ask a personal question, then this is for both Anthony and Konrad. Get in.
Outrageous.
This is my second one today. In real life, do you believe that we as human beings have free will or not? Thanks, guys. So, do you believe in free will?
Yeah, I do. I think in the context of this show, free will is a very nebulous concept. I think it does exist, but to express it, you need to behave in a way that's so kind of out of character for you that you would never think to behave in that way. So it's kind of a bit of an oxymoron, because you'd have to arrive at the conclusion to behave in a way that you would never normally behave, in order to sort of break out of the behavioral cycle that you're, what makes you up, kind of pushes you into or pushes you towards. In real life, yeah, I believe in free will. I think I don't like the idea that anything else has control over my actions. It lets me take responsibility for my own awful mistakes.
Yeah, and I'll say as well, like I know that there's a very detailed conversation you get into at a very sort of philosophical one. You can get into about, like, what actually are we, and our brain, like our brain is like a big supercomputer. So are we actually making decisions, or is our brain just deciding the best course for us? It's a very strange conversation you can get into. But if we boil it down to this, if I'm walking down a corridor and there's a left and a right, do I choose freely which one to go down? I think I do, because I don't believe there's anything predetermined. Because I think the universe has a starting point. I don't necessarily think the ending point has been predetermined yet. I think we're just slowly drifting out from the Big Bang, losing our heat.
Well, this episode of Dark asks an interesting question there, because, at one point, Ulrich is literally faced with a binary choice with no information about either choice when he picks left or right in the Sigmundus Creatus Est tunnel. And there's the implication there for the show Dark is that he doesn't have free will, because there's no way that you would toss a coin 50,000 times in a row and get heads every single time.
Yeah.
Yet for determinism to exist, he must always pick the left path to go to the 50s to murder young Helga. Because there's literally he has nothing to go on in that situation. It's literally just a binary choice based on no facts. So I think the show at the moment seems to me to be leaning on saying there is no such thing as free will, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that doesn't necessarily kind of invalidate the process of trying to find and express free will, or maybe it's just saying that there are characters who are operating on a far kind of lower or more simplistic level than the likes of the Stranger, like Ulrich, who's operating on base instinct, who can't see that he's making the most predictable choices every single time he makes them. That still doesn't really explain the tunnel decision, but I guess the show is, if I stop and think about it, I guess like that particular decision in the show is sort of falls on the side of supporting determinism. But yeah, generally speaking, for me personally, I like the idea I'm in control of my own awful choices.
Yeah, and I think you are. I choose to believe that you are. Right. Next question from Beatrice. There's already loads of good questions about the story, so I'll go off on a different approach. Oh, here we go.
Oh, nice.
This episode introduced my favorite time period from the show. I'm a sucker for the 50s aesthetic. So my question for both Konrad and Anthony, get in 3 questions, come on, is in terms of set design, characters, and storyline, which one is your favorite? Year 2019, 1986, or 1953? I'm going to guess... No, actually, I'm not going to guess because I might get it wrong, but I was leaning on for you maybe the 80s. But
oh yeah, it's definitely the 80s for me.
Yeah,
I if I could have been born in another decade, well, I mean, I was born in the 80s, but if I could have been like kind of grown up in another decade, it would have been the 80s for me. I love the 50s as well. Like I like a lot of jazz and swing music, and I'm a big fan of an era where all men wore suits and hats. But 80s just had like great music, great TV, great movies. That would have been the time for me.
Yeah, like I'm gonna say, in terms of the show, to be honest with you, I've never even really thought about which other time I'd want to live in. I suppose, like, if we're just gonna go real mad, like, if I could guarantee that I wouldn't just like die of some awful disease or get shot, I would definitely want to live in the Old West. I think if I could guarantee my safety, That's
I mean,
that's where I want to live.
it kind of defeats basically what you're asking for is like a Westworld type experience there, where you go to the Old West,
Yeah.
but you're never in any danger.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can identify with that, and that's why like there's a lot of people. I think when Stephen Fry was asked where would you want to live, and he said he always answered just like present day.
Yeah.
Because he would die straight away if he went back in time. But
yeah, no, I mean there is some truth to that. I mean, like if I could pick any timeline, I'd go like 1,000 years in the future and see what
yeah,
see what we're up to there.
just like but you go forward 1,000 years in the future, and then you're just like in the middle of space, nothing's there.
Yeah, just like the sun has supernovaed and there's nothing left, and I just immediately die.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the best case scenario. But basically, in terms of the show, I really, really like the 50s aesthetic. I'm going to be honest with you, because to me, it's really nostalgic. And that might sound completely ridiculous because I clearly wasn't alive in the 50s. I'm a 90s kid, so 90s is my nostalgia. However, saying that, I grew up watching Back to the Future a lot. Like I even said in one of my videos that I made, me and my younger brother, we used to watch Back to the Future after school every day for like a good 3 or 4 month period. Some days we actually got all 3 of them in after school. So
your poor parents.
So I went through a phase of only watching Back to the Future for like 3 or 4 months, and I also went through a phase, remember from the other week, of listening to Bat Out of Hell for for 6 months. So I'm a man of habit, I'll say that. But because of that, I kind of feel a bit of nostalgia to the 50s because of Back to the Future 1. So I love like Mr. Sandman, I just love that idea.
Yeah.
And I just think that it really gave me Back to the Future vibes when they went into the 50s for me anyway, even though it's very different because it is Germany. But
yeah, I mean the sort of production design of the 50s is great as well. I mean, I knew it was going to be because the 80s is so well realized. But yeah, there's just from the like way everyone dresses to the way the houses look to Helga. What's Helga's mum's name again? Greta.
Yeah.
Greta, like the way she dresses is so like period appropriate. And it's just it's a great look, and the music is great from that era as well. But I think for me it would have to be the 80s, just because we get hair metal and and Blade Runner.
Yeah, and what I'll say as well, just to sort of touch on before we move on about the set design and the art direction of the show, it's a very cinematic show, and it's not like a TV show like, I don't know, like a CW network show or something like Superwoman or whatever, one of those shows. Those shows where like it's always the same set and they always like have just like random clothes on. This show's art direction is very, very considered, and like every single scene has its own color palette, and like what the characters are wearing blend in with the set and everything. So it's very filmic and very cinematic in that way. It feels like we're watching a long film. They're not just sort of taking shortcuts in order to produce TV quickly. They are taking their time and really trying to produce a piece of art, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Like there's an attention to detail in the way they construct these time periods that is to be commended, because it's obvious a lot of work and effort went into achieving it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're up to it. The last question.
Oh wow, here we go.
Robert Barnt. Now, Robert has not let us off lightly with this last question. So, although it is just a bit of a joke, really, but it calls on your knowledge of Faust, Konrad. So,
oh Jesus, okay.
In a scene where the Stranger and H.G. Tannhaus are discussing the 33-year cycle theory of time travel, Tannhaus uses the phrase "des Pudels Kern," and in the very next scene, Claudia is playing with Gretchen, her little white poodle. What does Konrad make of this? Since I know Konrad loves Faust so much, I could help mentioning this idiom and something lost to many viewers in translation. Now, before you go, I've actually looked up the etymology, so this will help you with your answer, because I am expecting an A* level answer here.
Yeah.
So, etymology, literally meaning the poodle's core. The phrase is taken from a scene in Faust Part 1, during which a black poodle follows Faust home and transforms into a wandering scholar, who is actually Mephistopheles in disguise. Faust exclaims, "Das war also des Pudels Kern." So that was the poodle's core. And that is, it means, so that's what was going on inside the poodle.
Yeah. I vaguely remember that from Faust. I can't put my hand on my heart and say I remember Faust very well, but yes, okay, I think I remember this. So, if the implication that is it Robert Barnes?
Yeah.
That Robert Barnes is suggesting here is that the poodle is a demon with whom Claudia / Helga is going to make some kind of deal or bargain for power, then I am 100% on board with that as a theory. I mean, actually, you say, okay, no, serious answer. The poodle has gone into the goddamn caves, which means, I mean, poodle, no, hear me out. Okay, let's assume for 1 second that poodle figures out a way to open the Sigmundus Creatus S door. It's coming out at another timeline. You know, that's to be expected. So maybe Claudia is going to run into a dog in the 80s, and that's what's going to set her on the path.
She's going to find her old dog.
Yeah, she'll find Gretchen. Her dog will turn up in the 80s, and it won't be a kind of like demonic bargain for power. It will just be a sort of revelation as to what is going on at the core of fact. Claudia is in the caves in 1986. So she's going to... Okay, there we go. By the end of this season, Claudia is going to run into her dog in the caves in the 80s.
All right, put it in the Matrix.
It's on the Matrix. I don't remember Faust well enough to give any more of a serious answer than that. I think, to be completely honest, I think I read Faust purely as like an affectation when I was like 18, just to be like, oh, look how cool and literary I am that I'm reading German literature.
Don't put Robert down.
Oh no, I mean, I'm sure Robert is a scholar and a saint, and is actually an expert on Faust. Whereas I think I read it about the same time as I quote unquote read War and Peace, which is to say I got about a third of the way through it, and then was like, I've read enough of this to claim that I've read it, and then and then like just never mentioned it again.
Yeah, well, I'm a big musical fan, and Les Miserables is one of my favorite musicals, and I bought the book. I think I read about 13 pages. It's like, which is probably like 1/100th of the pages, but still, it was good.
Get the general gist.
Good effort.
French Revolution. There's some guys with tricolor flags.
Listen, if you have a book on your bookshelf and you've seen the film, no one's going to question it.
Oh yeah, I mean my novelization of the video game Doom is testimony to that.
Pride of place. I will say though, I don't know why, there's something about Leonardo DiCaprio films that whenever I see they're coming out, I get so excited about them. So for example, both The Revenant and Shutter Island, I saw the trailers and I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for this. And then I just bought the books, read them, and didn't see the films for like 3 years.
I didn't even know they were based on books, actually. I knew The Revenant was. Shutter Island, I'm telling you now, in my opinion, Shutter Island is one of the best book-to-film adaptations. I don't know how Scorsese did it, but he managed to actually capture the essence of the book. In my opinion, it's like really crazy and off the wall. And like, you've seen Shutter Island, have you? Yes, yeah.
So the way they're able to tie everything together in terms of the main mystery of it and all, they did a really good job. And I haven't seen something that complicated be brought to life on film before, from a book anyway. But I haven't seen every film, and I haven't read every book, that's for sure.
Oh, until you have, you are not allowed to have an opinion on any film. That's just how it works.
That's exactly how it works. All right, that's us for this week. As I mentioned before, we are not going to be having a question and answers video for the next episode at least. Maybe we will have one after that to sort of ask questions about the end of the season. But there's obviously real reasons for that. So hopefully we'll be able to... if you still want to ask questions on the episode, you can't now because it closes on Thursday, as I already told Marvin in this episode. But look out for something in the future. Well, definitely every single Monday you will get your After Dark podcast. It just depends on what form that will take in the next few weeks. So bear with us. It will be with you. There'll be no questions and answers though, and we'll keep you updated apart from that. Anything else to add this week, Konrad?
No, just thank you once again for coming on this journey with us. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, keep on trucking. Right, I'm looking forward to getting this theory matrix sort of scored out in red. That's what that's what I'm looking for.
We're about 50-50, I'm going to say. Actually, there's a lot of yellow. So yellow is my ongoing. Peter Doppler is guilty of something proposed, episode 1. So, I mean...
you know what? That's dead on.
Listen, I can score that off in green anytime I want. That's just...
That's in the bag.
That's in the bag.
Whenever you dip below 50%...
Yeah, exactly.
That
one's in the back pocket, ready for... I'm not 100% confident on the Regina will have a sword fight and there is some kind of satanic blood magic at work. But, we'll see.
For a yin, there's a yang.
Yeah, also Elizabeth and Yasin are still not deaf mute and evil masterminds. I'm sticking to my guns on those theories.
All right, well, that's all for us this week, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on audio apps. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And apart from that, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the After Dark podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode.